20 years ago this week, my brother and I were on the USS Abraham Lincoln, an aircraft carrier in the Persian Gulf. He was an F-18 fighter pilot. I was an embedded reporter living on the ship for more than 3 weeks. We were joined by KGW News photographer Rod Stevens, who'd figured out a way to send our stories back without using a satellite hookup. That was quite a technical feat for the time. To the best of my memory, there were something like 10 crews of reporters on the ship, but everybody else was at the network level. We were the only local TV crew on the Abraham Lincoln. I was there, of course, to cover my brother, but also for the many others who were on board from the Northwest. At the time, American public opinion overwhelmingly supported going to war. But I wasn't there to tell anybody whether the war was right or wrong. I just wanted to tell the stories of the folks who were there and the experiences they had on that ship. Here's a look back at some of those reports.
Thursday morning, jets launched from the Abraham Lincoln loaded with so many bombs they needed afterburners to get off the deck safely. But they were not flying specifically designed war missions. Instead, they were told to combine the typical patrols of the southern no-fly zone with an increased aggressiveness, an eye towards targets of opportunity, an attempt to soften up the battlefield. Pilots heading out, including these from the Stinger Squadron based in California, say this day brought no significant changes.
It still feels about the same as we've always been doing. I mean, we're here to do a job, we're ready for the job, and do what they tell us.
Do just as we have trained. There's not much new, very familiar with the area, and everything should be pretty routine for us today.
Still, the official word that this aircraft carrier and the United States are at war with Iraq now caught some by surprise.
Yes, because it woke me up. But other than that, I'm just glad to get it started and get it over with.
Okay.
I'm relieved. We're actually doing something. We're doing what we trained to do our entire careers. So I'm glad that we got it started.
When I shot those interviews, the Lincoln had been at sea for 6 months, a typical stint for a carrier. But then, as it was headed back to its home port in Washington state, it was turned around and sent back to the Persian Gulf to prepare for war. So what you heard there at the end is that many were kind of restless and tired of waiting. We were given access to pilot briefing rooms as the ship prepared for its first night missions.
As the sun went down today, there was a flurry of activity here in the Persian Gulf as jets, including this F-14, launched from the Abraham Lincoln to deliver devastating blows in Iraq. Jet after jet launched tonight. F-18s loaded down with so many bombs they needed afterburners to get off the ship safely. Also, radar jamming EA-6Bs from Whidbey Island and F-14 Tomcats from Virginia Beach. An hour before launch, the Tomcatters from VF-31 met to discuss the battle plan. They'd already been briefed on the weather, altitude, and speeds they'd use for the night, as well as their target, a military facility with an airport and other buildings. The crews also know how they will fit into the many other aircraft attacking Iraq this night. A senior member of the squadron reminded the pilots and weapon officers to keep their cool.
The calm is going to be crazy. There's going to be AAA SAMs out there. Stay calm. Trust your raw gear. Trust your training.
The Tomcatters commanding officer had the same message. Stay calm when the enemy radar hits you.
You're going to get lit up. There's going to be stray trons. The beam widths are wide. Don't freak out the first time you get some tickles of Singer or a mud or what have you. Get your eyes out and looking around and see what it is that you're trying to see.
And then it was time to launch. 5 hours later, the tired but excited crews returned to the ship. They described what they'd seen over Iraq.
It was something to behold out there tonight. Saw a bomb about every third of a second for a half-hour impact, and it was something that I've never seen before in my life.
Kept real busy up there. A lot of stuff going on. You could see, for miles, 100 miles out there, and like they were saying before, stuff was blowing up left and right. A lot of stuff was getting shot up at us, but kept our heads on the swivel and it worked out real well, I think.
No one is saying how many more nights of attacks like this lie ahead, but certainly here on the Abraham Lincoln, they have prepared many more bombs.
The Lincoln was the lead carrier in the war for the U.S. It took an amazing number of folks to keep the ship working and to keep that flight deck running. That also included people from Newburgh and Gresham.
Launching a jet off an aircraft carrier is no small task. It takes dozens and dozens of people. They're the unsung heroes, the deck crew. Aboard the Abraham Lincoln, the crew works night and day getting the big jets ready for flight.
Fast action. A lot of rain right now. I hope it clears up.
They handle everything from cleaning the canopy to scrambling up on the jet at the last second to help a pilot troubleshoot electronics. And it does not matter what the weather is doing.
It's crazy all the time, no matter if there's bad weather or good weather. There's always something interesting going on. And no matter what's going on, you got to get your job done.
Richard Cook from Newberg, Oregon is one of the many red shirts on deck who take care of the explosives.
It's tough. We got a lot of rain, sometimes hot days, sometimes cold days. It's pretty hard sometimes.
This day it was especially hard for the pilots. A fine powdery sandstorm enveloped the ship, dropping visibility to less than a mile. Listen as the head of the air wing talks to one pilot struggling to land.
You get one more look, Braz. I need you to get an on and on start. I prefer you to couple. I need you to fly the best approach of your life. I need you on and on about a half a mile.
And I'm not going to couple because this thing's throwing me off at 3/4 of a mile.
Okay? I need you to fly your ACLS and ILS like you've never flown it before. One more look and then you're on your way.
He did land safely. At least one Texan on board says he's seen enough of these storms and water.
It's new to me. First time out of home, and I've never been in the ocean this long. It's the first time. I live in Texas, in the middle.
But this crew chief from Gresham, Oregon says the young men and women working the decks are doing an excellent job.
Half of them don't realize what they're really doing, supporting the guys on the ground. And to see a 18, 19-year-old kid in charge of a $35, $40 million airplane and knowing that's their responsibility is pretty something.
It was amazing to see. Part of the air wing on the Lincoln included the EA-6B Prowlers from Whidbey Island. The squadron's no longer at Whidbey, but 20 years ago, they played a crucial role in the early days of the war.
In their defense of Baghdad, the Iraqis have fired mostly unguided missiles at the jets leaving this and the other carriers. One reason might be that old, ugly plane down there, the EA-6B Prowler. The biggest fear for a fighter pilot is a guided missile that can blow him out of the sky. The Iraqis are thought to have so many around Baghdad. There's a zone called the MEZ, the Missile Engagement Zone. But so far, surprisingly for some experts, the Iraqis have rarely used their radars to guide those missiles towards coalition fighters.
I guess the biggest one is the limited number of guided, it's a seemingly limited number. We're coming to their neighborhood, coming into their backyard, expect a good fight.
Scott Polpeter is the commander of VAQ-139 based at Whidbey Island. The squadron specializes in electronic jamming. Polpeter says the Prowlers have not only jammed enemy radar day and night since the war began, they've also fired several HARM missiles that follow radar signals back to the source.
We have trained the Iraqis over the many years that we've been involved here, and from Desert Storm, and from Kosovo, and any place else they've watched. And they're good in terms of watching and learning lessons. They know if they radiate, there may be a HARM missile coming down the stovepipe right to them.
The fighter jets on board also carry that deadly HARM missile. Heather O'Donnell is a member of the Prowlers. She was on board during one of those missile attacks.
It was awesome. I mean, just to watch it go up there in the sky, big bright light and everything, and had never shot one before, so we had goggles on and watched it all the way up there, and it was an amazing sight to see.
O'Donnell's uncle is a New York fireman. He sent this flag to the ship to help the Prowlers remember the meaning behind their mission.
There have been times where it's been really exciting, and then sometimes we're just like, okay, wait, this is it, and then you just think about the guys on the ground and try and go out there to support them as best you can.
My reporting aboard the Lincoln lasted less than a month. It was a very intense month for me, but the ship was at sea for a record 10 months, finally returning to its base in Everett, Washington in May of 2003. Here's one of my final reports.
I always knew my big brother Bill had more guts than me. Watching him work on the Abraham Lincoln proved it. That's him in the pilot suit. He volunteered, in fact fought to be a Navy fighter pilot. Despite 18 or more years as a pilot, he had never seen combat. But now, there he was, in the Persian Gulf, flying combat missions half a world away from his wife and 3 sons. Like other pilots here, he tried not to think of family during the missions. In the Persian Gulf, aboard the Abraham Lincoln, Pat Dooris, KGW Northwest News Channel 8. But I was right there with him, an embedded reporter watching him check bombs and missiles on his F-18 Hornet. I could not escape the feeling of how much danger he faced. Any mistake or a bit of bad luck during takeoff or landing or in the air could be fatal. Some missions were more dangerous than others. As I interviewed him, it was clear this one made him nervous.
So, in general, what are you going to do? What's this like right now?
Well, we're getting ready to go support some of the 5th Corps ground elements against some resistance they're coming up at just to the southwest of Baghdad. The boys need our help. The problem that we're looking at is the weather's coming down. May force us down into some anti-aircraft fire, which I don't want to see.
Then it was my turn to be nervous as I waited for Bill to return to the carrier. Fortunately, my big brother and all the Navy pilots did make it safely back during the war. And in between missions, we even had time for a bit of fun, being interviewed by Inside Edition, the New York Times, and others. And then finally, after what seemed like forever, my brother and many others returned home to long-awaited hugs and kisses.
That was a happy ending for my family. My brother's now a FedEx pilot and flies all around the world. Of course, not every family had such a nice ending. According to the Pentagon, around 4,500 Americans lost their lives during Operation Iraqi Freedom. Another 32,000 were wounded in action. And when it comes to war-related Iraqi deaths, there really are not firm numbers out there, but it's estimated to be in the hundreds of thousands, according to Brown University. In another report from Brown on the 10-year anniversary of the invasion, they estimated that Operation Iraqi Freedom will cost taxpayers at least $2.2 trillion. They went on to say that because there was plenty of money borrowing going on during the war, the cumulative interest through the 2050s could add up to more than $3.9 trillion.